Hey, everybody. Welcome to the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. We have Taylor Lorenz back in the back room today, and we're going to talk about all things tech and social media. But first, let me thank you for tuning in, and we appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please follow or subscribe, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. And don't forget to stick around to the end for our special celebrity closing. Taylor Lorenz, she's an author and Washington Post columnist covering technology and online culture. Before joining the Post, she was a technology reporter for the New York Times business section. She was also previously a technology reporter at The Atlantic and The Daily Beast. Her first book, Extremely Online, The Untold Story of Fame, Influence, and Power on the Internet, will be released this October and is available for pre-sale. Taylor, welcome back into the back room.
Thanks for having me.
What a busy week. So much to talk about. And shockingly, Elon Musk is not at the center of any of this stuff, or Zuckerberg.
Thank God.
So let's talk about the obvious. Threads. Shot out like a cannon. I love seeing those notes like that's 30 million, 50 million, 100 million. And now it's slowing down and usage is down. And it was a novelty at the very beginning. And, it's going to have to work on sustaining growth like any other business. So I'm not sure if it's a bad thing that it's slowing down after a week. What's your take on that?
I know. It makes me sad it's slowing down. I love the hype. I love those early days of a new social network. But yeah, certainly. I mean, I think that there's always going to be this bump, when a service launches, where there's immediate growth and everyone signs up for it. But I think, it's a marathon, not a sprint with any social app. And so we'll see how well Instagram's able to retain those users. I think they need to roll out a lot of features pretty fast.
What would you say are the top 3 things missing right now from Threads?
Search is key. And discovery as well. It's not great discovery mechanisms on there. And then a desktop version, I have to say. I mean, I don't know if normal people want that, but for me and other journalists and power users of Twitter, we really use it on desktop.
And how important do you think DMs are? Because that was a mainstay.
Oh, yes. Yes. Important.
Yeah. I mean, it's how we met.
Yeah. I mean, I DM, as a journalist, I'm DMing people all day.
Right,
so I hope we can roll that out too.
Do you think that stuff is coming sooner than later? Like this was just a tease to see what the marketplace is like, and wow, 100 million people sign up very quickly. And it's hard to imagine him not being able to do any of this stuff, right, with the money they have and the resources and the talent they have. So is that always been part of the plan, you think?
Well, I don't think that they anticipated anything like this level of success. I think it was just 20 people in a room, from what it sounds like, who, developed this thing. Now I think they're going to throw money on it. I think DMs are not as important as things like search and discovery, just because you can still DM people on Instagram and your profiles are linked. So some of that functionality. But no, I mean, the problem with all of it is that Facebook has a terrible track record of releasing apps. They have a big graveyard of apps that they've released. They've never released a successful product. They've only acquired products. Right. So we'll see if they can do it. And it would be a huge coup.
To someone like you, is this perceived as a new app or just a newish feature on an existing established app?
Well, it's definitely a new app. I mean, it's separate from Instagram for definitely specific reasons. I think I understand why they didn't integrate it into Instagram. I do think that the modes of expression are really different on a text-based social platform than something like Instagram. And I think also they want you to build a new network there, right? You don't just want to follow all the same people you follow on Instagram on Threads. You kind of want to build a new network. So it makes sense to launch it as a separate app.
And what do you think of it overall? Does it have enormous potential to you? And do you think it's going to live up to the early hype that it has?
I love it so far. I find it extremely easy to use. There are some accessibility issues, there's no alt text on images yet. And, so that's definitely a problem for some folks. But
and there's no hashtags either, right? There's no hashtags yet?
Not yet, no. So, I mean, again, this is a really bare bones product that they just kind of launched to get it out there. So I think they need to roll that stuff out ASAP if they want to capture Twitter users. I love it, though. I mean, just being able to share and reach people and have conversations again and share my work and share funny things. It reminds me so much of early Twitter. I really love it. I'm rooting for it. I hate to root for Zuck because he doesn't need that, but
Well, that's kind of the dilemma of most people. Of
yeah.
like, if you're rooting against Musk, that means you're rooting for Zuck. And it's like, people don't want to really root for either of those dudes.
Of course not. No one wants to root for a billionaire, but I mean, I guess actually a lot of people on the internet want to, but I think none of us tech reporters are necessarily like pro one or the other. But I will say that Musk has been far more responsible with the way that he's used, grown his platform. And Facebook has, facilitated really horrific stuff and genocide in different countries. However, I think that overall, Musk has handled the platform. He's handled Facebook better than Musk has handled Twitter.
I know from my own perspective and how I built an audience on Twitter, I see from a lot of other people that the concern is like, oh, I kind of have to start over because the
Welcome
audience...
to the world.
What's
like,
that?
This is like, yes, that is the nature. This is like what every content creator.
But we're lazy. We don't want to do
about.
that. We don't want to start over.
Good to start over, start fresh. You gotta, I have to have a clean slate sometimes. But I feel that pain. I mean, trust me, I do. I saw people are boycotting Blue Sky now, and I'm like, God damn it! I just got all my followers on Blue Sky, So it does feel like this sort of thing where everyone's like running from app to app, trying to, reamass their stuff. It reminds me so much of the days right after Vine shut down. Do you remember that in 2016?
Mm-hmm.
They declared the end of Vine, and you had all these content creators that were like, they actually all went to Facebook video initially, which is in my book, which people should totally pre-order.
We're going to get to that soon. Don't you worry.
Extremely online. Well, there was this moment after Vine shuttered where all these creators really, it wasn't clear that YouTube was going to be the winner because they were on Facebook video. Mm-hmm. They went on to Snapchat. And I think we're in that mode right now for Twitter, where all the journalists and media people and content creators are like, okay, what's the next move? Well,
I think over the last several months, with Post and Mastodon and Blue Sky, and now there's Threads, and it's like, which one of these things is going to be around for a while? And I think clearly the one with the most promise is Threads. And do you think there's an element of popularity with Threads that is just not Twitter?
Yeah, I mean, Twitter has gotten so corrosive and toxic and broken, and it's a poor product. I mean, even before Elon took it over, it was a broken product that was flailing and sort of lagging behind all the other social networks in terms of so many, different metrics. So,
and
yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I like Threads. That's all I was going to say.
What do you like most about it? Like when you're on it, what makes you go, oh, damn, this is great?
I think I can actually have conversations with people. I mean, I just love talking to readers. I love sharing my stories and getting feedback. I've already gotten some tips from other stories, on Threads. All of that was the utility that I got from Twitter. Now when I go on Twitter, it's a bunch of like thousands of people screaming at me saying I'm a woke, shill for Bezos or something because I work at the Washington Post. It's just so, it's like, what?
Oh, you're with Bezos now. You left Soros?
I know. I guess that's yeah. But it's just, it's frustrating. And people aren't there. The people that I used to follow and really engage with, they're not there anymore.
Right.
Celebrities have all left.
It's really changed. I was never a club kid. I was never anyone that went to the hottest this or the hottest that. Twitter now is like going to Studio 54, like in 81,
Yeah.
Like you look around and it kind of looks the same, and then you look around at the people and you're like, no, this is not the old Studio 54. I get really sad because, Twitter was a great place for a lot of reasons. I've met some amazing people, and I just hope that Threads can duplicate that same opportunity for people, because if that thing is lost, then something really was lost in that town square.
I think it's been lost already. It's gone. I mean, it's lost. Whether or not Threads takes off, it's lost. And I think we'll find pieces of those moments in other apps. I mean, I wrote a piece a week or two ago about TikTok as the new town square. And I think TikTok is where people go for cultural commentary and discussions and news content. I mean, we're all following the war in Ukraine on TikTok, right? And a lot of that stuff is what we used to use Twitter for. And so I think there's just different use cases and different user behaviors are going to scatter out across these other apps. But that doesn't mean that we won't have another app where we can make friends and have fun, and it could be Threads. It could be something else.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there are any FTC antitrust issues with this?
Well, I think Facebook's tried to, Meta, I should say, has tried to sort of thwart that stuff off by building it on this, whatever it's called, platform. I literally was talking to a colleague before because I had to give an interview about this and I couldn't explain it. But, it's built on, what is it called? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Matty, do you know? I'm not.
Yeah, it's a way of exporting your users to another social media platform.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like it's not open source. It's built on this protocol, which I can't remember the name for now, that allows more interoperability between platforms.
Mm-hmm.
So theoretically, I think that's how they're trying to get around some of the antitrust concerns.
Mm-hmm. Matty, you had a question for Taylor.
Yeah, I was curious because, as you mentioned before, Instagram has a very different mode of expression. And since the user base, when people join Threads, is their Instagram user base, how does Threads sort of put that together? Because everyone uses Twitter, for example, in a way where they silo all their political and news and sort of odd observations. And they didn't do that on Instagram. And can Threads square that circle?
Oh, yeah, I think so. And I think, I think porting in that existing social network is smart because there are people you follow. I follow tons of people for news and politics and stuff on Instagram. I think a lot of people do as well. And so maybe you're going to unfollow your weird aunt or something if she's posting on Threads, but there's plenty of brands and celebrities and other people that people are interested in hear from and people that maybe have interesting things to say and would express themselves in this capacity more, but don't use Twitter, So I think they're trying to capture that market as well and see hey, maybe text is a powerful form of expression. And maybe if we give people on Instagram this new way of expressing themselves, more, people will be interested in it if we give it to them in the confines of this new app that's not a toxic hellhole.
What do you think of Musk's lawsuit? I have a lot of friends who are lawyers, and everybody I talk to, they're like, there's nothing there. There's no way he's gonna...
Oh, it's nonsensical.
It's completely nonsensical.
Of course not. Let's talk about the fact that and Facebook also owns every patent for social networking. Facebook literally owns the patent for the concept of a feed. What is he talking? Also, he fired all those people.
Right.
So yeah, if you fire those people, most of whom I think they've not paid severance to, they're going to work for other tech companies.
And apparently Threads doesn't employ any Twitter people, right?
No.
Yeah, it is a nonsensical case. So, really important question. Do you have your tickets to the cage match yet? Or are you on the waiting list?
I want it to happen.
Who do you think would win?
I don't know. And I think that's why it would be such a great match.
You got you have the 39-year-old who's 5'7", apparently knows jujitsu. But then you've got the 52-year-old who's 6'1", much heavier, but he apparently has a special move known as the walrus, which he quotes as, "I just lie on top of my opponent and do nothing."
I don't know who would win that match, and I think that's what would make it very intriguing. And I don't think it will ever happen because I think shareholders of both of their companies would never let that happen.
And did you? I also read yesterday, and I kind of had to double check it, but he also challenged Zuckerberg to a certain part of your body measuring contest.
Yeah, I know. I saw that tweet. He literally, yeah. He's ridiculous.
That's
absurd.
Beyond ridiculous. That's kind of borderline sociopath. That's, my dick is bigger than yours.
Yeah.
Dude, your company is dying. Should you be focusing on that?
But it just shows. But this just shows how fragile he is, right? The type of men that engage in these types of one-upmanship over just nonsense like that. It's he's a fragile baby. That's why he spends literally 24/7 online tweeting, yelling at people.
Okay, let's say I am bigger. Now what? What does that mean in the grand scheme of things? What is his...
to men like that, it's just toxic masculinity, right? That's just what it is. And we know that he's extremely deeply misogynist in a lot of his rhetoric.
Right.
So
maybe he learned that from the expert on manhood, Josh Hawley. Maybe he read that in Josh Hawley's book. So back to Twitter now. In the last couple of weeks, we've seen him make more mistakes, like the temporary limits on number of posts. First it was 600, and I was like, oops, 800. Okay, 1,000. It seems like he has no idea what he's doing. Are we just seeing what happens when a guy who no longer has rocket scientists and automobile engineers around him making him look smart by building really cool shit, that he's now believes his own hype, he's the richest man in the world, fires everybody, he's like Trump, I alone can do it. Well, now we're seeing what Musk alone is capable of, and it's really not pretty. Is that kind of a fair assessment?
100% a fair assessment. Fair assessment. I mean, I think a lot of people have poked holes before in this sort of like great man theory of tech. And my book is about this as well, is that it's not these singular geniuses that sort of ascend from above and come to Silicon Valley and build these products, because they're such geniuses. So much of building a social product is actually user driven, and it's from the users, and sort of the users shape the culture, and they sort of work in this symbiotic relationship with the product. But he has no understanding of what it takes to run a successful social network and business. And he's clearly erratic and emotional, so highly emotional and petty and angry and aggrieved. And so it's not a recipe for success.
He likes you.
He's obsessed with approval. And I think he doesn't like when, people, especially women, report critically on him or don't defer to him. Mm-hmm. It's like, it is very Trump-esque.
It is very Trump-esque. And I think the comparison I'd make is that you and him kind of have this similar type of dynamic thing that Trump has with Maggie Haberman. Like, he doesn't, like he's attacking, she's fake news. But constantly seeking her approval.
Right, exactly. And that's true. Right. And he'll give stories to Maggie Haberman,
yes.
Right? Like, I know. Whereas I'm not getting any stories from Elon. Trust me. I don't have any kind of relationship with him. I don't need his stories, and I'm certainly not going to run any kind of positive press just because he feeds it to me.
Right. But obviously you matter to him in some way.
Of course.
And, him calling you a liar Lorenz, basically for telling
I thought that was so funny.
Truth.
He's trying to do, yeah. Well, right. And I don't know if you saw, I reached out to him on his personal email address, multiple personal email addresses before the story. Then he says, "Oh, liar." And then I said to him last night on Twitter, like, what's the lie? We're happy. We've reached out to you for comment. Of course, you can't name a single lie because the story's correct and factual.
Yeah. But you're getting heat from a couple. I know the Krasenstein brothers are.
Which, by the way, they also said this is the least factual story ever. There's not a single thing that's incorrect in that story. The Krasenstein brothers are not themselves right wing. However, everyone else who he monetized pretty much is, or it's like Mr. Beast, who is just like a personal friend. The point of our story is that he's sort of arbitrarily giving money to this circle of people who he's deemed worthy. And yes, he's used the Krasensteins as the token liberals because they're anti-Trump, but let's not forget the Krasensteins were banned from Twitter in 2019.
Yeah,
so
and they're also doing his bidding. It actually is a smart move on his part, because look what these guys are doing right now in defending him. It's a weak argument when you say, yeah, Taylor wrote something and 99.9% of the people are, it does look like right-wingers, but there are two people,
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, but that doesn't change the crux of the story.
Right.
And the crux of our story is that the majority of these people that he's monetizing have close personal connections to him or are right-wing trolls. He's given money to DC Drano, Benny Johnson, a big Twitter account with 1.4 million followers. It's called End Wokeness, that launches anti-LGBTQ hate campaigns. Andrew Tate. The list goes on and on. Like, to act like that's not newsworthy because he also gave a deal to these two brothers who have a very complicated ideology. It's like, give me a break.
I don't understand the point of what they're doing, because if I were them and I was truly a liberal or a lefty or
it's opportunism. It's not politics.
I would be like, yeah, that's a great piece. Yeah, that somehow he gave us money. We're not sure we understand it because pretty much everybody else is right wing. Instead, they took a different tack and are trying to undermine the point of the story by pointing to themselves as the example of why your story is wrong, when it's 99 point whatever you want to call it percent factual.
Which is exactly what, no. It's 100% factual, just to be clear, Andy. It is 100% factual. Nowhere in the piece do we say that he only gave money to these people. We said they were the first to monetize on the platform, which is true. These are the first to, if you look at the people who are first to monetize on the platform, it is a lot of right-wingers. We don't even say all right-wingers. We just say a lot of them. And a lot of them are in Musk's circle. And again, this is what they're doing is they're doing exactly what Elon wants them to do, which is go on Twitter and try and, cast doubt on the mainstream media, sow distrust in journalism. And now they're doing it to a more left-wing audience. And I think that's a shame that they're willing to do that type of thing and allow themselves to be used in that way. But we know, I cover influencer culture. This is classic influencer behavior. Influencers want attention. They're opportunists. Of course, this is what they're going to do. Yeah, and that's why he's using them.
Yeah. So let's talk about your book for a second. It is called Extremely Online, The Untold Story of Fame, Influence, and Power on the Internet. It comes out in October, and it is available on simonschuster.com for pre-sale. Anywhere else?
It's available everywhere for pre-sale now. And pre-sales are like the only thing that matters for a book. So if you think you might read it, just pre-order it. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere. That you get bookshop.org. You can get it from order from your local library.
I know we talked a little bit about it last time you were on, but for those who weren't listening last time, what is the central gist of the book?
Yeah, and it is about the rise of social media, but it's a social history of that era and the rise of the content creator industry, which is not something that's been written before. I think a lot of people are wondering, like, okay, we live in this content creator influencer ecosystem. How did we get here? That's what my book answers. And I think for anybody that's looking at the world or wants to understand Twitter, wants to understand people like the Krasensteins and Elon and stuff, you should read this book because it explains kind of those first 20 years of social media. And we've had a lot of corporate history come out about these companies. There's the Facebook book, there's the YouTube book, and the Instagram book, and I love all those books. But those are more corporate narratives and business from the inside. My book is from the user side, and how were these platforms shaped by their users? Because it's not just one great Silicon Valley man that comes down and releases these apps. It's sort of this push and pull with their user bases and with these influencers.
And how forward-looking is it, especially using the internet over the past 20 years as the foundation to today's
Well, you have
internet?
to understand, that's the thing that people don't, it's like people are trying to make these predictions and trying to speak out of it, but they have no idea the history of all this stuff and sort of how it happened and why it happened. And a lot of these issues that Elon is encountering in Twitter, again, I say that stuff about like Vine, because it's like, we've been through this before. There's so many moments in recent history, actually, that there's parallels we can draw and things we can learn from it. And so I think people will take a lot of that from my book. And also, I hope that my book will change the way they use social platforms and change the way they approach social platforms, because I think we as users actually do have a significant amount of power over the platforms. And we should wield that power collectively rather than just say, oh, I hope Silicon Valley does XYZ. We should pressure these platforms to be better about misinformation, hate speech, all the bad stuff.
And what does that look like? How do people do that in their everyday lives?
Well, we've seen it really done successfully by big content creators for sure. But I think it's joining a campaign, even if it's just like a hashtag campaign, signing up for something and just being more intentional about how you use these platforms yourself, right? Like, you don't have to be on every app, although I love technology. I am out there, but maybe don't sign up for something. Maybe don't just stay with Twitter because you've seen how this goes before. Maybe you're not going to use that app anymore. Maybe you're going to be more intentional about your own social media use, or at least think critically and also just understand when you see something like the Krasenstein. That's a perfect example. If you read my book, you can understand why the incentive structure at play and why somebody is saying that, and understand the new media landscape, which is also what my book is about this transforming media landscape that's sort of arisen in tandem with this tech landscape. And a lot of people, I think, don't understand it. They don't understand why suddenly, according to Reuters, whatever it was, 58% of people are getting their news directly from influencers. They don't understand how that shift happened. And so my book answers this question.
Do you think with Threads, the way people used to look on Twitter for their news, do you think Threads has the real ability to become that same source of information and news for people?
Yeah, I think it has I think it it could have that ability. I think it remains to be seen what features they roll out, right? If they don't have a search bar, no. But I think it could be. I mean, people want news. News is entertainment. It's informative. It's going to be on every social platform. I know that these tech companies don't want it, and they like to say, "Oh, we're not for news. We're for entertainment." That's not a distinction you can make.
Mm-hmm. And so back to Musk. This is a guy who not that long ago said, quote, "With artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon." And this week he announced his new company, which is a AI company. Well, I don't know much about it. I tried to look into it, and all I could find were quotes like, "We're announcing formation of XAI to understand reality." Or, as co-founder Greg Wang said in a tweet, they're aiming to take AI to the next level by developing a mathematical, quote, "theory of everything for large neural networks." What the fuck are these people talking about?
I think Elon Musk is famous for his vaporware, as in, talking about things and allegedly launching things that never come to fruition. So I just can't, I don't even really pay attention to him unless something actually happens, because I'm still waiting for the Hyperloop tunnel between, LA and California, whenever he said that would be done, or he said we'd be on Mars by now. So he says a lot of things. I'm sure he's throwing money at this. I have no idea what it means. I mean, there's a big war in Silicon Valley in the sense that they all want to control AI. They recognize AI as a powerful new tool. It's going to shape the future, and they all want a monopoly on that. And I think this latest endeavor by Elon is, again, just an attempt to gain market share in that new area.
You basically destroyed Twitter. You decimated its ad revenue by 90%. You cut its valuation by more than half. If I was sitting back and I was the bankers and investors behind the Twitter deal, I'd be like, "Elon, can you just maybe fix Twitter before you start messing around with something else?" Like, how thinly spread can Musk become?
Right. But the goal of why his goal with Twitter is not necessarily, I would argue, to make it a successful business. It is to dismantle the media and dismantle democracy. And, I think that he has sought to restrict speech, limit the power of the press. I mean, the things that he has done with Twitter, I think, are very much aligned with his goals and his investors' goals. I mean, look at Mark Andreessen backed this deal, right? Mark Andreessen, who famously wants to destroy the media. That is one of the first things Elon did, is start banning reporters, myself included, although I'm back. But,
Well, you're the expert on this, and I'm not. So I'm just going to ask what might be a dumb question. You buy it and then shut it down. You want to kill it? Kill it.
But no, but that, right. But it's not enough. You're not just trying to shut it down. Shutting it down wouldn't accomplish those goals, right? Mm-hmm. You want to give rise. You want people to question the media. You want them to question. And by the way, people should question the media, but I just mean so misinformation. He wants to push a very specific political agenda. And look at the political agenda that he's using, one of the biggest communication mass media tools of our generation.
Right.
He owns it, and he is using it to push a very specific political ideology. And that's how people should understand it.
So it's buy the town square, control it, decide who comes in, who goes out, what comes in, what goes out, and just change the conversation.
Yeah. And I wrote a piece for Neiman Lab last year about sort of these astroturfed right-wing influencers, and you see Elon Musk minting a new one every second, a big thing on the right is that, the far right wants they want to sort of maintain institutional power. They back these content creators by giving them a shit ton of money, and then they prop these people up as organic new media. And so, you see Musk doing that with a lot of people on Twitter, essentially giving them tons of money and saying wow, look, you're the new media, you're the new content creator. Suddenly you're getting mass distribution in everyone's feed. This affects media narratives. Affects people's perceptions of the truth. I just think it's a pretty high stakes thing, and people should take it seriously and look at it that way, rather than oh, he's killed his ads business. He doesn't give a shit about a lot of that.
Well, if what you're saying is true, and I think it is, and I agree with it, then Musk controlling an AI business is terrifying. If his goal is to control the narrative and shape the narrative.
Andy, the only thing I'll say is don't worry about it too much, because he's so inept at so many of these business endeavors that who knows if it will go literally anywhere.
But who's this Greg Wang guy? Is he smart? He's a co-founder? Who are the 11 other guys that are involved?
They're smart. I mean, you got smart people. He got very smart people.
I mean, he's
but
got
again,
Google people, and I mean, there's a lot of people that are coming out of, like a DeepMind, OpenAI. I don't know these companies, but from what I read, they're top companies in that space, and so he is hiring experts.
100%, and he has the money to do that, right? But he hired a lot of experts for a lot of his other companies too, and we have not seen a lot of those products come to fruition. You saw the Cybertruck, it's just like, who knows, right? Like he's very erratic and unpredictable.
When you think about the conspiracies that he's been involved in, whether it's Pelosi's husband and helping to spread that, AI has a lot of capabilities that are dangerous. And, I would imagine it wouldn't be too difficult for him to do other stupid, dangerous, conspiratorial things of that nature.
This is why, Andy, we should not have a tech landscape dominated by maniacal billionaire men.
Right.
Like, we shouldn't. This is a bad...
Well, quite honestly, maniacal billionaire women wouldn't be too great either.
No maniacal billionaires.
Probably not as bad.
Of any gender. And it's also like 100%. And also, it's really not even about gender. Although I do think that there's an element of toxic sort of like masculinity. But
absolutely.
We could have a toxic girl boss as well. And I would be against that as well. I think we just need people in power in these tech organizations that are more responsible. And we need a less profit-driven social media landscape.
Switching gears for a second, we got big earnings coming out next week. All these tech companies are going to be reporting. Amazon just finished and wrapped up 2 days of Prime Days, which it says is the best they've ever had. $13 billion in a couple of days, up 6% over last year. Do you think it's going to be a good week for these companies in terms of reporting?
Yeah, I know the Amazon thing is crazy. Just that it's still going. I mean, that's a lot. I don't know. I
bought a TV today, actually, because it is still going on. I saw something, and it said, you could still get deals. And I was like, oh, really? So I bought a 43-inch TV for like $150, which is insane.
Wow.
So there are still deals going on. It seems like this earnings season is going to be pretty huge for these companies. For Meta, Snap has had a good run the last 2-3 weeks with its stock. I don't know if that's tied to anything substantive in terms of the company's performance, but it just seems like we've entered a new round of positive performance by these companies.
Yeah, I'm eager to see kind of how it shakes out.
And there's a court ruling recently restricting the Biden administration from contacting social media companies. Do you have any particular thoughts on that and whether or not that's going to hinder the administration from stopping the spread of misinformation and conspiracies?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't love the idea of the government deciding what is or isn't misinformation. I think as a reporter, I don't trust the government, and I don't trust these big tech companies to be the arbiters of truth, because as we know from our reporting, they often lie. So I think, I don't think it's as bad as people are saying. I think actually a lot of it was really well-intentioned, trying to flag like anti-vax, COVID misinformation, as I understand like what a lot of that was about. I don't know that that's their role to begin with. I think that these companies need to build a better way of policing misinformation so that they're not relying on someone at the White House to email them,
And you wrote a piece recently on the boat jumping challenge on TikTok.
It's just people jumping off boats, and which can be very dangerous if you jump off a moving boat. Jumping off a non-moving boat is totally fine. When you jump off a moving boat, you can hit the water really hard and you can break your neck. It can kill you. And unfortunately, it has killed many people. And the Today Show, which, speaking of the media spreading misinformation, just flat out lied about this challenge and said that it's a challenge. It's not a challenge. It does not exist. And I traced it back to this single comment from a guy in Alabama who just made it up and also was spouting a bunch of other conspiracy theories. This man has no idea what he's talking about. There's absolutely no evidence that any of this is tied to TikTok. And once again, the Today Show is lying about a teen trend. And I just don't know how many times they have to lie about things for people to hold them accountable. It's ridiculous. And people are like, why do you care so much? Oh, you're defending TikTok. I defend it a lot. Like I spent literally years debunking these fake YouTube trends. All of this matters because parents get extremely freaked out. You're terrifying parents who believe this to be a TikTok trend. And people people don't focus on the real issues that we should worry about, which is data privacy and all the other horrible ways that our children are being manipulated on the internet. It's not the boat jumping challenge.
That's an interesting point because everyone seems to be yapping about China and TikTok. Don't go on TikTok. They're going to own your information. I don't really understand a lot of that because it's like, what do I have that it would be so valuable? The average person, what do we have that's so valuable to China? They don't need, right?
They don't need TikTok to get our information. Because of our lack of data privacy, they can get it from third parties,
right,
from via Facebook. Like our data is so exposed, and it's in these political parties, especially the right's interest, to make China the boogeyman instead of focusing on comprehensive data privacy reform, which would actually protect us from all state actors.
Well, the stuff you were talking about before, TikTok and social media in general, how it impacts our children, that's real, that's tangible. The China stuff just seems like a lot of hyperbole for political reasons, like you're talking about.
Yeah.
Dr. Roxy, are you familiar with this whole situation?
Yes.
What is wrong with our society when a plastic surgeon decides like she should live stream operations? Well, she lost her license, her medical license. Like if I was that person on the table, I wouldn't be feeling very comfortable that doc here is paying attention to my body, Just seems like we've lost our way in society when this stuff becomes popular.
Yeah, I think it's very dystopian and depressing. Plastic surgeons in general had they have a deep relationship with social media. This is where they cultivate their client base. Also, the rise of social media has been a huge boon for the plastic surgery industry, right? Everyone wants to look like their Instagram filtered photo. So it's kind of unsurprising. I'm actually surprised that we haven't seen more of it because especially TikTok Live, the growth of TikTok Live, people really want these real experiences and entertainment. And I can see why something like that would be compelling. It's a peek into something that you normally don't get to see. The reason you normally don't get to see that is because it's a safety issue.
Yeah. There's a lot of interesting, crazy stuff going on out there in the world you travel in. So it's great to have you on to help us make sense of it. And we look forward to you coming back next time.
Thank you. Pre-order my book and then you can make sense of all the
I just did.
The book is called Extremely Online, The Untold Story of Fame, Influence, and Power on the Internet. And you can pre-order it everywhere you buy books, Amazon, wherever. Thanks again for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Take care. Well, this is pretty amazing. Elon Musk just stepped into the back room and he's agreed to do the closing. Thank you. So that's episode 95. I'm a genius. So if you like what you heard, and even if you don't, then just shut the fuck up because I don't like criticism. So there's a couple of people I want to thank. Elon Musk, that's me. I just like to thank myself because I'm a genius. This episode, Taylor Lorenz, maybe you've been following the feud that we've had on Twitter. I called her a liar because she spoke the truth. And so I'm a genius. Thank you, Matty Rosenberg, producer guy and does the board. Jen Hammoud, Cricket Lengyel, she did something good for the logo. Just Andy Hollander guy made some music. Patricia Wind, the Epicurean. Maybe I should just buy it. I'm going to buy this Epicurean and shut this podcast down. Anyway, that's it. Just come back next week. Don't come back. Who gives a fuck? I'm a genius. Did I say that already? I'm a genius.